Spider-Man No Way Home might be the movie of the year, so let's talk about it. I dropped my spoiler-free review on Friday, I believe. And so if you haven't seen the movie, go ahead, go watch that. But this will be spoiler-filled. You will have the entire movie spoiled for you if you have not seen it and you watch this all the way through. So if you have not watched Spider-Man No Way Home, click away. Go away. Don't watch this video. But if you have, sit back and enjoy, because we're going to be talking everything Spider-Man. Let's get started then, shall we? I feel like this is going to be a longer video just because there's so much to talk about. First of all, let me say that this is probably... Can I speak? This is probably the best Spider-Man movie I've ever seen. Better than Spider-Man 2, better than Into the Spider-Verse, better than any other Tom Holland Spider-Man film. This is the best Spider-Man movie I've ever seen. Now, a lot of people are saying it's the best Marvel movie just in general, and I think that's giving it a little too much credit. Again, that's just my personal opinion. I definitely believe it's top 5. But I think this movie proves, and I said this in my last review, that Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man. Peter Parker and Spider-Man, just like ever to have played the role. Now, I'm not saying that because I don't like Andrew Garfield's version or Tobey Maguire's version. I actually think they both did incredible jobs within their roles, even though the movies themselves, in my opinion, weren't that great, especially on the Amazing Spider-Man side, Andrew Garfield's side. But also, it's hard for me with Tobey Maguire being how old he was in the movies to say that's my Peter Parker. But I definitely understand why people say that's Peter Parker for me. Yeah, I think if you look past nostalgia, I think you'll find that Tom Holland's Peter Parker / Spider-Man is the best version. And I think this movie proved that, even though Toby and Andrew both came back and there was a ton going on. Like, there were 5 villains, there was so much going on, and to their credit, they pulled it off very well. I never felt like I was overwhelmed or there was too much going on. So good job, Marvel, good job, Sony. Absolutely amazing job. Even though all that's going on, you still feel like Tom Holland's Peter Parker is at the center. He is the main character, which is something very impressive to do. I know Eternals failed at that, kind of like having a main character. And with all that was going on here, I think they did an incredible job. Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock being the lawyer. Like, oh my gosh. I honestly didn't think they were going to do it. I know there were so many theories that, like, the guy on his left during the, like, police scene was going to be Matt Murdock, and it wasn't. I don't know. I never thought that was Matt Murdock, and I never thought they were going to put him in this movie. I thought he was definitely going to be Phase 5, maybe at the end of Hawkeye. Never did I think that he was going to be in this movie. And dang! There he was, just out of nowhere. He was there. He was Peter's lawyer. That was amazing. And I'm so excited that Daredevil and Kingpin and all of them from the Daredevil series are now in the MCU. I'm so happy. I love that show. All right, I want to touch on the villains because, oh my gosh. I said this in my last review, but every one of the last Spider-Man movies, so Spider-Man 3 and then The Amazing Spider-Man 2, they both failed to try to do multiple villains. I'm just going to give credit to Sony and Marvel. They finally learned how to do multiple villains at once. The villains in this movie, although some are put to the side, like Sandman, like Lizard, were kind of put on the sideline, which I think out of the 5 villains, they probably should have been. But the 3 kind of main villains, so there's 5 villains and there's 3 kind of main villains, and those are Dr. Octopus, Electro, and Green Goblin. But you can definitely tell that the Green Goblin is the main villain. Obviously, because he killed Aunt May. We'll get to that in a second. But I think they did a really good job, especially with these 3 villains. Electro was definitely redeemed in this movie. He was more comic book accurate. I think it was super smart to take away the whole blue outfit, blue energy vibe he had going on in Amazing Spider-Man 2. I don't know why they went that route, but I'm glad they fixed it in this one. Also, he just felt more powerful in this movie. Like, he took on all three Spider-Mans. All three Spider-Mans. I don't know what the plural is for Spider-Man, but he's so powerful that he could take all three of them on, which I was like, that's Electro right there. Also, they removed the whole like music element, like voices in the head thing that he had going on in Amazing Spider-Man 2. They hinted at it a little bit when he was still blue at the very beginning. Like, he had that hard, like, I believe it was rock music, like punk music at the very beginning. But then once he changed into, Jamie Foxx, and you could actually tell he was a human, it went away. So I'm really glad they did that. I think they fixed his character. So the fight on the bridge that we always see in the trailers was so good. It was so good. It was all I expected from a Dr. Octopus versus MCU Spider-Man fight. I wish it lasted just a little bit longer, but I thought it was really cool at the end when Doc took the nanotech from Peter. Peter was able to like control the arms from that. I thought that was a really cool twist. The only complaint I have with Doc Ock is I wish he was more of a villain throughout the movie. Like, once he's cured, I feel like that was a little bit too soon. But again, I don't really have a problem with it just because there's so many villains that I don't think him being cured so early on was a bad thing. I also think out of all the villains, Doc Ock was the only one that like really didn't need fixing. Like, him in Spider-Man 2 was like almost perfect, so I'm not too disappointed that they didn't do more with him. But I think he was a really good addition to this cast. Now, let's get to the best villain, William Dafoe's Green Goblin. I saw something the other day that like Dafoe would not come back and play this character unless he could do all his own stunts, which is insane to think about because I think he's like 62 or something. So Green Goblin in Spider-Man, in the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, was incredible. I think he was an amazing villain. And somehow they made him even better in this movie. I'd say even more menacing, even more like psycho. I really liked his updated outfit. I like that they smashed the helmet. I love the helmet. It's iconic, but I don't know. I don't feel like that would have fit like the final fight scene. I think Dafoe's facial expressions really make it, like really add to the insanity of the character. So I'm glad they kind of ditched the helmet early on in the movie. But the reason the Green Goblin is like the main villain is because of what he does in like the middle of the movie. And that's he kills Aunt May. What? Yeah, so Aunt May dies in this movie. I think they did it really well. My only complaint with it is that she was fine for too long. The twist took too long, but I think they did a really good job with it. It was really sad. I almost cried. I'm sad that Marissa Tomei is not going to come back and play Aunt May more. I think her death is one of the reasons why Tom Holland's Spider-Man is now like the definitive Spider-Man, because the only thing we've missed in the MCU so far, at least I think, in terms of character development for Spider-Man, is that he hasn't really lost anyone. And that's kind of like his whole thing in the comics is this dude loses everyone. And then we finally kind of got that with Aunt May. And although it sucks that she's gone, it was kind of needed to kind of get him to that point where this is the comic book Spider-Man. This is Spider-Man. I love Doctor Strange in this movie. I love everything that Doctor Strange is in, to be honest. I loved his movie. I loved him in Infinity War. Loved him in Endgame, even though he's just there for very little. And I loved him in this movie. Even in What If, the dude was absolutely amazing. I was a little surprised with how little he was in this movie. It makes sense now that I've watched it all, but I was shocked when I walked down and it was like, he only got 15 minutes of screen time tops or something. He and Peter's kind of relationship is amazing. They play it for a lot of comedy in the movie, and it all works. Some of the best lines are between Doctor Strange and Peter. Like the one where he goes, "You didn't think to call and plead your case before I brainwashed the entire world." Or like, "Scooby-Doo this crap." All that. Yeah, but I love Doctor Strange in this movie. I think it set up Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness very well. Especially with the trailer at the end. I hope they drop it soon because I want to see it again. But I think the setup was really well, although it was subtle. I don't know. I think I have this expectation that setups are going to be a lot bigger in these movies, and they never are. I think I've said all I need to before this point. Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire come back in this movie, and they played a lot bigger of a role than I thought they were going to. I thought maybe a brief cameo at the end, or they pop in when Tom Holland's down in the fight against all 5 of the villains, and then they come in and help him defeat them. But no, they're like a very big part of this movie, which I was not expecting, but it works so well. Their like relationship with one another is amazing. Like the scene before, I know I'm skipping ahead, but the scene where they're on the Statue of Liberty waiting for the villains to come, and they're just talking about like Tobey Maguire having all natural web fluid. What are the craziest villains you've ever fought? Or Tobey getting his back cracked by Andrew, or Andrew saying I'm the lame Spider-Man, and then like Tobey having to like counsel him and being like, no, you're amazing, which again, amazing Spider-Man reference. I just think they played it all very well. It felt like three Peters were interacting with themselves, even though they were all played by different actors and they were all different ages. I think their relationship was so good. I think this movie showed me the potential of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and makes me want to see more of him. I am going to say this though. I don't want an Amazing Spider-Man 3. I know people all over Twitter are like, Amazing Spider-Man 3, Amazing Spider-Man 3. Like, we're going to make this the new Snyder cut and we're going to get this done. I don't want to see that. I want to see him more in like Spider-Verse type situation or maybe an appearance in Venom. I think the time has passed for an Amazing Spider-Man 3. Not because I don't like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. In fact, he's probably my second favorite Spider-Man ever. But I don't think that's a good idea. I think the scene where both of them come in for the first time was absolute gold. Like MJ throwing the bread at Peter. She's like, where's your tingle? And he's like, I don't have it for bread being thrown at me. And then having to prove that he's Spider-Man by hanging from the ceiling. And she's like, that's not enough. Go crawl. And he's like, no, this is definitely enough. Like, you can't do this. I thought it was all really funny. And then Ned, I believe it's his grandma. She made the scene even more golden. Can you get that cobweb while you're up there and clean up the webs you just shot at one another? And I'm going to go to bed. Just kind of, I'm done with this crap. That whole scene was just gold. So towards the end of the movie, when Doctor Strange casts the spell that makes everyone forget who Peter Parker is, I thought that was a good solution, a good ending, and also a great way to kind of wipe the slate clean for the next Spider-Man trilogy that they have coming up, which I believe is college years, which is going to be so cool. I thought it was really sad though. I don't know, just kind of me as like an introvert, me thinking about having to remake all the relationships you had before. I don't know, it just made me feel so bad for Peter. But the ending was really cool. I think it opened a lot of doors for new things in Spider-Man 4, whatever that's called. But the suit at the end, oh my gosh, it looks so good. It's like finally a super comic book accurate suit, and dang does it look good. Overall, I think this movie was phenomenal. It exceeded expectations in every way, shape, and form. It also met a ton of expectations I had going into this movie. I also think it set up the next trilogy super well, and I'm actually really curious to see what they name this next trilogy, because kind of the home trilogy has ended, and it ended really well. I think they tied it up very well. Spider-Man No Way Home, the movie we'd all been waiting for, definitely movie of the year. It's finally dropped, and it met all my expectations, and I'm super happy with it. So this movie definitely gets a radical from me. Absolutely gnarly, bodacious, whatever you want to call it. It meets it. 10 out of 10. No, not even 10 out of 10. 15 out of 10. 100 out of 10. I don't know. Just all the 10s. It was so good. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Was this the greatest Spider-Man movie you've ever seen? Is Tom Holland your favorite Spider-Man? And what did you think about the movie? Let me know in the comments down below. But thanks for watching, y'all. I really appreciate y'all. And I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.